So I just finished playing Wanderstop, the recently released so-called cozy game from Ivy Road Studios, the new home base for game designer Davey Riven, whose work over the years has come to mean a lot to me. I was understandably excited for Wanderstop as soon as I realized it was happening, and indeed it was something I didn't wait to experience. I grabbed it as soon as I could, and from the day of purchase I was playing it pretty consistently and wrapped it up about a week later. Wanderstop tells the story of Alta, a fighter who fights people all over the place in the name of fight glory, I guess. The ins and outs of her career aren't really described in detail, but what we are to understand is that she is the very best, and there is no besting her in a fight until one day somebody bests her in a fight, and now they're the best, and Alta starts spiraling pretty hard. While running away from her problems and towards a proposed solution, she is overcome with exhaustion, no longer able to carry her sword, physically unable to lift it, and collapses somewhere in the forest. When she later comes to, she finds herself at the mysterious and whimsical tea shop Wanderstop, run by its enigmatic and endlessly accommodating proprietor, Boro. Boro suggests that Alta take some time to relax and let things normalize before returning to her journey, and after some resistance, Alta comes to realize she might be carrying a considerable amount of acquired baggage that needs unpacking, and Wanderstop seems like the ideal environment in which to do so. The self-proclaimed cozy game plays out well enough from this point. Throughout the course of the game, Alta spends her time interacting with would-be customers of Wanderstop, while periodically revisiting her story with new perspectives, unlocking more and more of it as the game progresses. The actual objectives of the game are limited pretty specifically to fulfilling orders of tea for the various characters who come and go from the clearing, and procuring the ingredients needed to do so. There is plenty else to do in the game, almost none of it is required, amounting to relaxing busy work, pulling weeds, planting flowers, or even just sweeping leaves. I'm not really sure what I'm supposed to get out of this, but I did it. I swept those leaves. Are you happy, Boro? The name of the game, however, is Decompression. Just about every conversation Alta engages in throughout the game has her confronting something about herself through the eyes of another, or coming to an understanding about the rest of the world offered to her from these travelers she meets on their own journeys. I think it's worth pointing out that despite this being a project involving Davey Riven, there is no fourth wall breaking narrator, no hilarious and unexpected mechanical adjustments, no meltdown moment that will have you questioning reality or the stability of the experience. It is a very straightforward story delivered well and framed appropriately. Even without the existential or postmodernist weirdness one might be expecting, I can say I found myself affected by the weight of the story, and I fully appreciate what it's putting forward. However, if I'm being honest, I'm not really sure if I consider this a particularly cozy game, or rather I'm not sure it succeeds in that venture. For as much as this game is about letting all of the stress and hardship melt away, it is very ready to remind you of that hardship at almost every turn. I found it kind of difficult to get lost in this game about getting lost in something relaxing, which seems like a bit of a drawback if you ask me. So yeah, all in all, Wanderstop is a pretty good game that I felt could have been a little stronger as an entire piece. Some of the mechanics were a bit stiff and the NPCs were kind of annoying, and maybe we could come up with something a little better than sweeping leaves as a side activity. Seriously, what were they thinking with that one? In the end, I'm giving this game a 7 out of 10. It's a game that I think is okay, but I'm not sure I'll be discussing this game come December for Game of the Year list season. Thanks for watching. Be sure to like and subscribe and smash that bell like hell to get all the latest updates on this here channel of mine. So until next time, keep it real, I guess. Alright. So having just said that, I think I have to admit that thought that I ended on is ringing somewhat incomplete in my mind right now, because the more I think on it, the more I can't help but consider that maybe Wanderstop as a game wouldn't want me to be talking about it come Game of the Year list season. I think Wanderstop might argue I would be missing the point if I did. For as much as this game feels just okay, that's kind of what I've been hearing it tell me the whole time. It's okay. All of it. And yeah, it's a little cheesy to recontextualize a statement like that, and I know that seems kind of like an uninspired capper to a video like this, but I think the magic trick that Wanderstop pulled off on me is one I could just as easily leave hovering around the end credits and never think about again, or instead think about for the rest of my life and dig something out of, as I usually do on this channel, and guess which direction I'm naturally taking this in. The first thing I asked myself when I finished Wanderstop was why I felt the need to review this game. And I don't really do reviews on this channel, at least not normal ones, So this is a metaphorical feeling. To be clear, that was a bit what I just did in the opening. I did not actually give this game a 7 out of 10, and no shade to actual reviewers out here, but I have never given a numerical score to a game on this channel before, and I have no real intention of ever doing so. But that sentiment was kind of there with this game, and I'm not really sure why. It felt like I wanted to point out how average I felt this game wound up being for me. Sure, there were things about it that kind of frustrated me, things that I thought could have been more polished or accounted for that made me drift towards thoughts of I could be playing something better with my time, for whatever that means. It was a weird feeling, so I indulged it a bit, despite the fact that I'm actually kind of nervous about people only watching that far and taking my score as something worth considering, but oh well, the bit stays. So why was I looking for a reason to review, a chance to stop and decompress amidst all of the everything swirling around me these days? Why am I so concerned with the quality of a reprieve from the stress I feel that I'm only managing to manage at any given time? I can't help but feel that the mood I went into this game with was restrictive and damaging, because this is a poignant and well-wrought story about burnout. It's pretty upfront about that and clearly wants to reflect on it. But how easy is that to relate to? How meaningful could it possibly be if I haven't yet burnt out? Why am I recognizing something important here if I think I'm doing fine? Well, I'll tell you why I recognized it. Because I did burn out once, about 8 years ago now. From 2017 to 2020, I kind of refused to actively work on this channel. I could have at pretty much any time, but the idea of it felt pretty similar to Alta trying to pick up her sword. The desire was there, but the act of doing so was just fully deflating, and I managed almost nothing. During that time, my creative output in music dried up, and all of the other endeavors I tried out failed to take any kind of hold on me. I did finish a video that I was already halfway through at some point in the break, but it wouldn't be until 2020 that I would finally find the drive to make my return. And when I did, it was specifically with a video about how much I came to value aimless play and decompression in games. How Minecraft taught me to take this time less seriously and just allow it to be what it is. Not unlike Wanderstop. And so it felt kind of like this game should be speaking to me, right? That's the question I was really stuck on, and in the end, I realized that what I didn't like about Wanderstop was the mindset that I brought with me into Wanderstop. Something that should sound kind of familiar if you've played the game. The game is essentially about Alta struggling to fully separate from what is plaguing her at this time in her life, the pressure she is putting on herself to make sure that her personal status quo is maintained. Her time in the clearing is supposed to be a safe haven from all of that, a chance to relax and reflect however she or however we choose to do so. To my mind, it's no accident that Alta is a fighter, the most generic D&D class, the template for every classic adventure video game we have played over the years. She's the hero. We have played this character before. It's easy to envision this as a job. Pick up sword, be better than other person with sword. Something that should come naturally to anyone who has played video games really at all, but now recontextualized as a constant grind, leaving you tired and worn, an unending trial for a reward that is always fleeting. We've all been there over and over again, and that's how it becomes relatable enough to take this out into the real world, where that sense of grind is even grindier. It's premium grade grind. And so how weird is it to suddenly come across a game where barely any of it is necessary, and partaking in it leaves you with basically nothing to show for it, except for maybe an ill-gotten stop sign? Even Stardew Valley, my favorite game to relax and unwind with, has objectives and goals you can succeed or fail at. But in Wanderstop, there are no objectives you can use to maximize your score. Most of what this game allows you to do is secondary to the ostensible point of the game, and the whole time I think Wanderstop wants you to be asking yourself, why are you here? What are you accomplishing by engaging with this software? And think hard about your answer. Because the game makes it pretty clear. The answer is nothing. You're not making money, you're not maxing a score. Even the Steam achievements for this game, arcane and meaningless, appearing randomly for some undefined reason, seem to only be here because they have to be. You're not proving yourself the very best like no one ever was. You're not saving a town or country or the world. You are just here. And you can make as much or as little of this as you want, and that's okay. It's kind of a nice feeling. But then there is enough here for me to get hung up on. Like I said before, I struggle to find Wanderstop cozy most of the time. When I think of a cozy game, I think of Animal Crossing, Stardew Valley again, or any number of games I have memorized to the point of routine. An environment that I can lose myself in and feel the activity of play melt away into comfort and relaxation. And maybe Wanderstop could join that last category one day, but on first blush, the story is pretty dang involved. The conversations of the game almost entirely serve the wider, mind-expanding purpose of the narrative, and I would argue that the structure of the game is more concerned with reminding you of what is at stake as often as it is about leaving it be for the moment. There are pockets of cozy in here, but it feels more like an adventure game about trying to escape something that is stuck in your head, something inescapable. It does feel like a game to be completed as much as it doesn't. And so every time Boro suggests that you go fill some planters with plants for no other reason than just to do so, it feels weird, I guess. And only after I was done resisting the idea of doing nothing in this game that is about doing something, of rejecting the need to improve my personally derived nebulous equivalent of a gamer score that I seem to have created for myself, I found that I was actively and happily arranging plants in planters, considering variation, sourcing seeds when I needed more options, often for considerable amounts of time at a time. In the final chapter, when I decided to get through all of the varieties of tea the game offers before the end, I finally realized just how attached to Wanderstop's whimsical, wonkian tea brewing method I really was. At one point, it is suggested that you feed some tea to the Pluffins, these angry little guys wandering around the yard, to make them change color, or even just because they like it. And once again, I actively resisted doing so. Why bother if it's just another thing to get in the way of rolling credits on this game? My time was better served returning to the forest so that I could get this story under my belt and move on to the next thing. It was only after I gave some leftover tea to one of the birds that I realized the joy it brought me to see this colorful little guy following me around, like an affection had grown. Another point of connection this game wanted to make with me for no other reason than because I was taking the time to be there with it. I think I am recognizing right now how much I have come to think about the things I enjoy as work to be finished, like it's competing with my job or something. It feels like I might be slipping into old burnouty habits again, like I'm thinking about the games I play as a shopping list, something to check off as I proceed to what's next. The next game to play, the next movie to scope out, the next new album to discover and rave about, the pressure I put on myself to enjoy things in between the doom scrolling and the going to work and the worrying about money and the trying to find time to make videos and the maintaining the Patreon and the trying not to freak out about the state of the world right now and the making sure I work out often enough and the wishing I was still making music and the thinking about my regrets and the avoiding future regrets and the worries about my country maybe being annexed and the wondering if things will ever feel good again and even just making sure I remember to eat and sleep enough to keep doing all of this. What wound up fascinating me most about Wanderstop was how much I resisted what it asked me to do because I refused to believe that it shouldn't fit into my anxiety the way everything else seems to these days. Which, in retrospect, feels kind of unhealthy. So, yeah, I had a bit of a weird go with Wanderstop. It's not what I expected, but not in the way I usually expect to not expect what's coming, so well done. In a way, this game about escaping from the pressures that the world or other people or even we ourselves put on ourselves dodges being an escape from the grind. It kind of indulges in it, but I think for good reason. Wanderstop is about recognizing what you are escaping as much as successfully escaping it. This game, in encouraging me to stop and smell the roses, showed me something from which to stop so that I could smell the roses. At no point presenting a judgment on what that thing might be. And escape is a dramatic word. Sometimes it's just about relaxing, centering, or just decompressing. Something we all need to do at various times. Instead of being the cozy game that lets me fade away from what is weighing me down for a few hours at a time, it's a story about recognizing that it's time for some serenity, that shows you where to look for that release. There is no argument for or against, it just ushers me here to its ending, having offered me a chance to be away from everything else for a while. That's an impressive tightrope to walk, and as much as I think it succeeds in its goals, I definitely had to learn how to meet this game halfway, and I will fully blame that on my own hang-ups as they are these days. I rely a lot on escapism. Without it, my life is pretty quiet. The ideal state to amplify the noise coming from outside. Noise which has become pretty nauseating of late. And so I wanted this game to be longer, to be bigger, to be more involved, and more relaxing, more comforting, more serene. I wanted an engaging conflict to navigate, and no conflict at all. I wanted it to blow my mind, but not in a way that would make me feel too strongly about anything. I'm not sure what I expected this game to be, but upon reflection, having now finished my time at Wanderstop, I think I'm glad for it being what it was. A game that argued that maybe what I needed was something to just be okay for exactly as much time as I wanted it to be. But there is a big part of me that is wondering what kind of effect this will have on me after this. If anything in the games or movies or books I have coming up on the horizon is going to be as gently satisfying as planting flowers or pouring a fresh cup of tea. Thinking about the video scripts I have in progress, the big passion projects whose scope I'm anxious about, or the more experimental stuff I'm always on the cusp of chickening out on, are making me wish there had been a few more customers to talk with, to give me weird tea orders to try and fulfill. I feel like I'm gonna miss managing and cataloging my collection of mugs, trimming thorny weeds, and yeah, okay, Boro was right about the sweeping leaves thing, okay? It was very relaxing and more games should have leaves to sweep in them. All of this is ringing in my mind. All of these are things I'm going to have to put aside when it is time to leave the clearing, exit the forest, and resume where I left off. The direction to travel, the tasks I approach, left up to me. Every now and then, I come across a game that hits a bit different. The kind of thing that transcends the ideas of like or dislike, operating outside of my structures that determine what may or may not end up becoming a favorite. The kind of thing that makes that word sound trite and unimportant. These are games that change the way I consider not just the world, but myself, and how I exist within it. Davey Reedon is even responsible for one of these games. I have spent a long time thinking about the beginner's guide since I played it all those years ago. And Wanderstop almost feels like it should be on this list. Almost. I don't anticipate a lot of change in myself following my encounter with Wanderstop. Knowing me, I will probably go back to vacuuming up every game, movie, or TV show I come across. I'll continue biting off more than I can chew with videos this year and the next and all the ones that come after. There's an equal amount of shit that has me worried about the future going on these days, and that all feels like it's going to need a counterbalance as best I can manage. But I feel like I will be looking over my shoulder, back at Wanderstop and thinking about how I haven't burnt out yet. Again, I guess. But I should be wary. Rather than shattering my worldview and changing how I see myself, Wanderstop showed me how to be okay with being okay, however that needs to happen. I know, that's not really the ending we may want, but it's where this game took me, and I'm okay with that.